everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that have plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. We are continuing our run with the New Mutants and all things X related. And today we are going to be looking at the New Mutants number 38 from 1985. Now, if you remember in the previous issue, it was a Secret Wars 2 crossover, which was resolved in Secret Wars number 9. And at the end of the issue, the New Mutants were killed by the Beyonder. This cover is done by Arthur Adams. You can see the New Mutants in their graves. So, the beginning of the story, I'm sort of going to narrate. It's sort of the way I was doing the Secret War crossovers. And so we've got Aftermath starring the New Mutants. And it starts out with Magneto. Yes, I say Magneto, not Magneto. Rick Leonardi is the guest penciler, but Bill Sienkiewicz is still inking. So, and we see the New Mutants taking on the Sentinels here. And we've got Mirage on Brightwing. We've got Karma. We've got Cannonball. We have Magic. We have Wolfsbane. And we have Magma. I don't believe we have Sunspot here. Let me just double check that we got Warlock and Cypher here. So I don't believe we see Sunspot. I believe he had left to go to his homeland in the previous issue. So, all right. And so, as I mentioned, they're fighting the Sentinels here. I am narrating this. You'll see why I'm narrating this first half here. You can see that Cannonball destroys this one. And then, just like that, now the Hellions appear, and we've got the White Queen here, and Jetstream is thrown to the White Queen. Again, it just you'll see the why in just a moment here. You can see Magic working with the dark things here. Magneto then shuts everything off. So this was just a training session, but I'm still narrating. And Magneto says, "Students, that is enough for today." And Cypher says, "Oh, come on, Teach. Why do we have to quit when we're having some real fun? I just love almost dying." And Magneto says, "And someday, Cypher, you shall. But tonight, it's time for bed," like a parent telling the little kids as if they were little children here. So the kids kind of get ready, but you see they're going into a cemetery and they're going to go into their grave. And look, they dig themselves in. And we end this with pleasant dreams. So it says here, I awake. So let me tell you what was going on. It was all a dream. So that beginning was a dream. Normally when there's dream sequences, if you've been hearing me, you know I kind of just skip around because dreams, I'm not a big fan of dream sequences. So this was a dream, but this particular dream is shared by everyone. So it's Magneto and the New Mutants. So you can see here, Magneto says, "I awake to wonder if this is in actuality another dream as I greeted another dawn as the new headmaster of Professor Charles Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters." So remember in X-Men 200, Xavier was taken because his body was breaking down. So the nurse goes, "Good morning, Magneto. It's overcast again. Looks like we're in for more snow. I have the Mail and the Times. Which would you like first?" The Time meaning the New York Times. And Sharon says, "Magneto, you had that dream again. I should have guessed." This late in the day and not a peep from the kids means they probably had it too, she says. And Magneto drinks his coffee, says, I fear so. Each night, Sharon, they hurl themselves into battle against the increasing deadly odds before returning to their graves. The best they can do is endure. They cannot even hope to win. Unless I can break the cycle, this nightmare will consume them. Their bodies may function, but their souls, their spirit will be no more. This time, the White Queen was added to the conflict together with her Hellions. And Sharon says, that's funny. Here's a letter from her asking how things are. And she says, you think there's a connection? And Magneto says, possibly. She's a telepath. If I am physically sensitive or psychically sensitive enough to receive these nightmares the mutants are broadcasting, it is logical to assume she would be too, as he reads that. And she says, you look dreadful. When did you last eat, a proper meal? And he says, coffee is fine, Sharon. I'm not hungry. And Sharon says, what's the point of being the school nurse if no one pays the slightest bit of attention? Magneto, you won't do any good by running yourself to the ground. Bad as you feel, the kids are in a lot worse shape. They need you whole and healthy. And he says, hush, Sharon. They are here. So you can see that they're all coming through. And he says, good morning. And everyone's like, we don't want to talk. And everyone just sort of knows, and you can see here everybody's having the same nightmares here. So Tom Corsi says, hey Amara, how about giving me a hand later? And she says, as you wish, using your flame power as magma to help me clear off the driveway. And so they saw that things are not going good, and Sharon says, my training as a nurse is in emergency medicine, Thomas. This sort of psychosis is way out of my league. And she says, I know it's unfair to Magneto. He's trying his very best, but I can't help thinking that if Professor Xavier were here, he'd know how to handle this. And of course, he thinks, where are you, Charles, old friend, when I need you most? Well, he's in outer space, so... All right, and so now he continues narrating here, and he says, the day drags as does my spirit. Far into the night, I roam the mansion in welcome solitude, dreading the moment my eyes must close in sleep. I swore to Charles I would preserve his dream, shepherd his students. I must have been mad to do so. He was the born teacher, not I. He would know instinctively what to do, while I must grope through shadows. You can see him there walking without the lights on here. And he pours himself a drink. And he's like, what shall I do? Give up, violate my pledge, abandon the children? And he looks at the drink, and then he tosses... Oh, no. Sorry, I thought he tossed the drink, but there's something here, kind of like... And you can see that it goes through here. And it was a match from the White Queen, who is actually here. And she goes, drowning your sorrows, old man? And he's like, Emma Frost, what do you want, woman? And the White Queen says, if my intentions were hostile, Magneto, you'd be dead. So these are two alpha mutants, so who knows? State your business, then get out, he says. And she says, such gallantry. Not at all in keeping with your reputation, she says. But then you've been under strain, she continues here. By the way, I'm a big fan of Rick Leonardi's pencils. I have his whole run in Spider-Man 2099 with Peter David. I just love it. I am a big fan of him. Wish he would have done more. So, the White Queen says, I'm aware of your situation. Even at the Massachusetts Academy, it takes me an effort to screen out the psychic cries of your students. They're not getting better, my friend, and in fact, quite the opposite. I believe I can change that. And Magneto says, why should I trust you? And she says, have you a choice? In the past, Charles Xavier and I were rivals, even bitter foes. But it is not of him we speak. It is the children. Their need is desperate, Magneto. I can help them, ease their transcendent misery. And he says, I can try. By the way, if you wonder why I say Magneto instead of Magneto, sometimes I catch myself, is it's magnet with an O. Magnet O. If it was Magneto, it would be spelled different. You'd be see two E's. I just, um, just the name made no sense. And so I made a conscious effort to say Magneto because I think that was the correct name. She continues, I'm willing to admit them to my school and teach them as Xavier would. I give you my word not to pressure them to join the Hellfire Club. I will simply remove the pain and give them the opportunity they deserve to enjoy a normal life. Is that so awful? And Magneto says, it would be an abomination. And she says, can you do better? Can you do anything? As he's but you're gonna see kind of what's going on here soon here. And so whatever you decide, it won't be for you, or it won't be you or I who suffer for it. You're trying your best, Magneto, but you're failing. Will you now sacrifice the mutants on the altar of your pride? And he's like, get out. And so she says, as you wish for now. Magneto and Cannonball are in the danger room, gives him an exercise to go through and not get caught, but he goes through and he's doing well, but he ends up getting caught, and he says, enough. I'm very disappointed, Sam, but your performance was well below par, far less than you're capable, as well as what you've done in the past. Have you an explanation? He just says, no, sir. And Magneto's like, he isn't interesting. The boy couldn't care less, he thinks. I might as well be talking to a wall. And so he says, I expected better of you, Sam. As you should of yourself. He says, I'm sorry. He's like, is that all you have to say? He says, yes, sir. Sam, what's going on? I want to help. And he's like, no, sir, everything's fine. Really, sure. You and Danielle are the leaders of the mutants. The younger students turn to you for guidance. I hope you might turn to me. Open your eyes, lad. Look at what's happening to you all. Does that not concern you? Don't you care? He's like, nope. You and the others have regressed nearly to the levels you established when you entered the school. You're hurting yourselves, Cannonball, by this behavior, failing yourself. And he's like, are we finished? Can I go? And then he's like, run 5 kilometers. And so, Magneto thinks this is all to do with the Beyonder, and that he's also questioning himself and hopes to prove himself as their successor. And so now he's going to go to kind of like P, either Stevie Hunter, and so it tells him to go again. And they're doing the same thing, kind of not working through. And he's like, he's just had enough here. It's like, students, when Miss Hunter or I or any of the teachers of school give an assignment, you will execute it to the best of your ability. Is that understood? Now perform the sequence again. This time do it properly. And Magic is like, who needs it? Who cares? And she leaves. And so she kind of gets mad at Magneto for kind of intruding, and she's like, hey, get out. So off he goes. And so at the stables here, Mirage is with Nightwing, and she's upset. She knows they all died, and there was nothing that she could do about it. But of course, they were fighting the Beyonder. So, as I mentioned, I did not cover Secret Wars number 9. Feel free. I'm sure there's a video somewhere, that on YouTube that will have that. Feel free to go in there and check it out. I just am not interested in Secret Wars Part 2. Part 1 was excellent. Part 2 was, I don't know, didn't really care for it. So, all right. So she's upset about she's almost upset about the resurrection. Like, what? But that was in Secret Wars issue 9, Secret Wars 2/9, and she's like, we were told we were dead, but I don't believe it. Even if he is supposed, there's someone bigger, huh? And so Brightwing kind of is moving, and he bows, and it's a frog, and of course it is Thor. During this time, Thor was a frog. I actually have a playlist with Walter Simonson's Thor run that I'm still working on, and so he speaks to Mirage here, and so she hears her voice in his head. He says, "Valkyrie, thou art but a mortal besides. A gift as great as it is unique. Thou must never lose thy faith, young warrior. Thy worst foe, oh my God, shriveler of souls, who must never be yielded to its despair, triumph over it, and thou will triumph over all." And so she's like amazed. So he's trying to break her out of the funk. So and so Thor was transformed into a frog in Thor 363, which I have covered, and I do have a playlist because I am a huge Walter Simonson fan, and I'm covering his Thor run. And so there he goes here. And so she's kind of she says it worked. I still hurt Brightwing, but I'm pretty sure I'll survive. I wish I could save the rest for the gang here. So everyone is like basically like zombies here. They even say it here. So here, Magneto meets the Annie Hogarth, principal of Salem Center High School, and he goes by Michael Xavier, who's Xavier's cousin, long cousin, and he's like, "I appreciate you creating cover identity for me, Charles, but did it have to be so melodramatic?" Anyway, she asks that she hears Danny Moonstar will be heading home, and he goes to visit her parents. Yes, and she says, "I get the impression from your tone that you don't expect her back." And so here, Magneto's kind of looking out. He just feels that everyone's gonna leave. He just doesn't understand what's going on. He sits and realizes that's not the chair and it's Warlock. He says he meant no harm. He says I just got startled. And he's like, "Hey, what's wrong with the kids?" Basically, I'm asking for advice. He says, "I don't have any advice that I can give you, and I'm just as lost as you are." And Magneto says, "You don't seem to have effects, suffered effects from the Beyonder," and he's like, "Nope. Basically, I was rendered inert, but got better." And so Sharon says, "Professor Xavier, Doug Ramsey's parents are here to see you here." And so they come in, and he says, "I wish it were under happier circumstances." He says, "As do I. Doug's been so happy since joining the school until these past weeks. He's like a different boy." And he's trying to deal. Look at Warlock back here, and you see they're being watched, and of course, it is Empath, the one who can manipulate the feelings and magnify them, who is sort of the one that is creating that melodrama. So it's all part of the White Queen's desire to get the New Mutants here. And so Sharon and Tom see him, and he makes them fall deeply in love. And look at this, a bestial passion that will not die until it has drained you utterly. And he continues watching. He says, "Someday soon, I hope, I pray, I shall do far worse to her exalted highness, the White Queen. But until then, I shall bide my time and play the good student and do her bidding to the best of my ability." And so he continues watching Magneto here. And he is going to he gathers the New Mutants. Says, "I have an important announcement. I'm transferring you to the Massachusetts Academy. I know this will come as something of a shock, but I believe it is for the best. As from this moment, the New Mutants are disbanded. Xavier's school is closed." And they're like, "Yes, sir. Anything to say?" And of course, she's like, "No, this is crazy. Something's wrong. Doesn't anybody care?" And she's like, "Magneto, you can't be serious." And she's like, "It is done, Danielle. Finished. Well, I'm not going, and none of you can make me." Um, she says, "I'm trying to hear that, child." And so he's like, "I told myself to pay Mirage no mind. She understandably upset. But I believe I know that I have made the right decision, the only decision." And you can see a cry here at Tier, and next issue things get worse. So, um, the beginning, I don't like dream sequences, but once we got over it, this is more this issue is kind of low action. Mostly it's just a lot of talking, but I think that's Chris Claremont loves to do, and it doesn't have a lot of action except for the a few of the sequences, which is why I think the dream sequence was the way for him to get that action, so he could then do the rest that he really wanted to do. So, The New Mutants number 38, Chris Claremont, Rick Leonardi, and Bill Sienkiewicz. Good story. I like Rick Leonardi. So, like and subscribe. I do thank you for listening. Goodbye.